No one could forget that night in the royal palace of Madrid in the summer of 1834. The air hung thick with incense, sweat, and the cold weight of untold secrets. Candles sputtered, casting long shadows across the worn tapestries that told stories far brighter than the grim scene unfolding. You, the royal physician, had been summoned for a task that chilled your bones. "The king is dead," whispered a chamberlain as you entered the chamber where Ferdinand VII rested, his lifeless form shrouded in silken sheets. Yet the silence seemed unnatural, heavy as a tomb lid. Before you lay not just a man, but a symbol of a torment stretched over decades, the grotesque secret that defined the late king's reign and tormented his very soul. Queen Regent Maria Cristina stood nearby, her face a pale mask etched with grief and unspeakable dread. Her trembling hands clutched a folded letter, and her whispered voice barely rose above a sob as she implored, "Preserve him. Preserve the truth." Slowly, with a mixture of dread and professional duty, your gaze descended beneath the silks. What you saw defied belief, a monstrous, misshapen endowment, both horrifying and tragic, the physical manifestation of a curse carried through bloodlines and time. It was an emblem no court chronicler dared write aloud, a secret whispered behind closed doors, and a cruel legacy that would haunt Spain for generations. To glimpse the tragedy of King Ferdinand's life is to peer into the dark heart of royal genetics, where power, privilege, and paranoia intertwined with biology in fatal embrace. The Habsburgs and Bourbons had long practiced a deadly ritual, marriage within the family to preserve power, to keep the crown's shine unblemished by foreign blood. Cousins wed cousins. Uncles, nieces, cousins became spouses in a twisted dance of dynastic ambition and genetic roulette. Ferdinand was born into this poisoned legacy on October 14, 1784, in El Escorial Palace. His parents, Charles IV and Maria Luisa of Parma, were first cousins, bound in an alliance that rigged the genetic lottery from the start. From infancy, Ferdinand bore the marks of this inbreeding. Documents hidden away in dusty archives hint at fragile health and abnormal development. But the most profound, most devastating injury was one too intimate for the public eye. As Ferdinand transitioned from boyhood into adolescence, court physicians grew uneasy. His anatomy developed in ways no medicine could reconcile. His reproductive organ grew monstrously large, bizarrely malformed, and with proportions that seemed alien. One early physician described it clinically, yet eerily. His Royal Highness's member reaches unprecedented dimensions, with a base no wider than a thumb, yet swelling to a circumference defying natural law. Another, more blunt and less restrained by courtly tact, compared it to a billiard cue, thin as candle wax at its origin, but thick as a clenched fist at its end, long enough to strike the ground. The boy who should have grown proud instead became the kingdom's darkest secret. Ferdinand's early years play out like a tragic tragedy written behind palace walls. His father, weak and indifferent, preferred hunts to rulership, leaving governance to favorites and advisors. His mother, voracious and scandalous, flaunted her affair with Manuel de Godoy, the de facto ruler, daily reminding Ferdinand of power's fragility. Amid such dysfunction, the young prince's deformity marked him for lifelong humiliation. Whispered jests at servants' quarters, courtiers masking mockery with smiles, foreign diplomats relaying tales of Spain's embarrassment, children's prying eyes, tutors' cautious avoidance, and cruel gossip bred paranoia. Ferdinand internalized the jest, the cruel laughter twisting into bitter resentment. His once innocent gaze darkened, secretiveness hardened into vindictiveness. A boy broken by mockery became a man fueled by fear and power. The blurred line between his body's betrayal and his mental torment grew thorns. Servants who glimpsed his shame vanished without a trace. His rage, unchecked, carved sorrow into palace history. The gilded pageantry of the royal wedding belied the horrors to come. Maria Antonia of Naples arrived in Madrid, young, hopeful, dreaming of fairy tale romance beside the man heralded as the desired one. The grand cathedral overflowed with melodies and cheers. The streets echoed with celebration. Yet beneath the splendor's surface, dread pooled. The bridal chamber, opulent and gilded, became a chamber of terror. The moment Maria Antonia glimpsed Ferdinand's naked, grotesque anatomy, her scream rent the silence, a raw, unyielding cry of terror. She called him monster, aghast at the club-like mass with its twisting deformities, the alien lumps that defied human comprehension. The consummation was no tender act, but a harrowing ritual. Pillow supports meticulously fashioned to cradle the monstrous organ. Oils and tinctures applied with precision. Every motion clinical, sterile, every touch, a cutting blade of pain. Maria Antonia endured it only under laudanum's heavy veil. The king, haunted and paranoid, could not accept her repulsion. 2 pregnancies blossomed and withered as miscarriage claimed their fragile hope. Fleeing into narcotics and despair, Maria Antonia died at 21. Official causes whispered fever and delicate constitution. The court whispered darker truths, sexual trauma, addiction, and brokenness. After Maria Antonia's tragic death, King Ferdinand's obsession to produce an heir became an all-consuming madness. But grief twisted quickly into suspicion, paranoia, and cruelty. Haunted by failure and the grotesque realities of his body, Ferdinand sought every imaginable remedy to fix his broken fate. Courtrooms filled with the whispers of alchemists and charlatans promising miraculous cures. Exotic powders ground from rhinoceros horn and pearls, mystical elixirs brewing in the shadows of the royal chambers. Royal physicians, once bound by protocol, now collaborated with foreign specialists and occult practitioners in secret. Astrologers pored over lunar charts, promising auspicious timings for conception. Incense burned endlessly in ritual chambers built behind palace walls. One mysterious figure, a supposed mystic from the Orient, convinced Ferdinand that his distorted member was no curse, but a divine gift, the feared dragon's rod, waiting to be awakened through ancient rites. For months, bizarre ceremonies unfolded, incense smoke twisting with desperate chants, while Ferdinand subjected himself and his wives to contorted rituals supposedly passed down from forgotten dynasties. Yet hope brought only despair. 2 pregnancies ended in devastating miscarriages. The second loss nearly killed Maria Antonia in a gruesome labor that left her body broken and mind frayed. Rather than compassion, Ferdinand's bitterness turned venomous. He accused his wife of betraying their sacred duties, of poisoning, sabotage, even secret political treachery. Rumors whispered that the king himself had grown tired and might have been complicit in her death, further darkening the court's shadows. Ferdinand did not pause. He married again and again, each bride selected with cold calculation, each union a grim replay of the last. Maria Isabel of Portugal arrived in 1816, naive and hopeful, but the grandeur of her arrival could not mask the horrors ahead. The wedding night was a bloodied nightmare. Screams echoing through palace halls, blood-stained sheets, broken furniture bearing silent witness to the violent torment endured. Psychological scars went deeper than physical. Maria Isabel's stutter returned, nightmares plagued her restless nights, and hysteria gripped her fragile mind. Court physicians reported hysterical episodes, but modern eyes see a woman crushed by trauma, haunted by a monstrous, unrelenting terror. Ferdinand, consumed by paranoia, saw conspiracies where none existed. He ordered her letters intercepted, her food tasted, her chambers searched for poison. To his twisted mind, fear and suspicion became loyalty tests. Her every movement was a potential betrayal. The king's obsession blurred lines between personal torment and political terror. Spies roamed the palace corridors. The Inquisition, revived under his decrees, persecuted those accused of sexual slander, poisoning private lives with dread. While Ferdinand crumbled under the weight of his personal horrors, Spain itself unraveled. The great empire that once commanded seas and continents now quaked with rebellion. Spain's American colonies declared independence, emboldened by the weakening monarch. Revolutionaries wielded Ferdinand's personal failures as propaganda, painting their king as a powerless tyrant, whose monstrous secret symbolized his political impotence. Inside the palace, paranoia warped every interaction. Secret passageways were carved to allow the king's furtive movements. Mirrors were strategically placed to catch spies and eavesdroppers. Servants lived in terror of his unpredictable rage, Even favored guards were rotated constantly to prevent deception. Yet, the worst horror lay closest to him. His wife Maria Cristina of Naples, who bore a child not his own. Whispers swirled, but Ferdinand clung desperately to the illusion of legitimacy. He spied obsessively through keyholes, controlled every word she spoke, demanded food-tasting rituals that drained the household's vitality. Maria Cristina, once a proud princess, shrank beneath the suffocating surveillance, her health and sanity fraying. As the years advanced, Ferdinand's physical condition decayed alongside his fragile mind. Chronic insomnia, tremors, digestive disorders shadowed his final days. His speeches, once regal, turned into rambling accusations of invisible enemies. He conducted conversations with death masks of his dead wives, obsessively comparing portraits of his daughter Isabella to potential fathers, tormented by doubt and jealousy. Despite dread and illness, his focus never wavered from producing a true heir, a futile quest that drained Spain's coffers and shattered any remaining hope for stability. In 1833, when death finally claimed Ferdinand, official reports cited gout. But those privy to court's secrets understood a deeper truth. Decades of trauma, isolation, and madness had claimed the monarch. His grotesquely deformed anatomy, preserved carefully by palace physicians, was locked away in secret Vatican archives, a shameful relic no one dared reveal. In the end, Ferdinand VII became more myth than man, a cautionary tale of power corrupted by personal torment. His reign left Spain fractured, humiliated, and diminished, a once mighty empire shattered by one man's private chaos. Isabella II, the daughter who carried a shadowed claim to the throne, inherited not just a kingdom, but a legacy of paranoia and pain. Ferdinand's story echoes through history, a stark reminder that unchecked power combined with personal dysfunction can devastate nations, destroy lives, and haunt generations.